Welcome to Chucky Radio. This is Chucky. And this is my podcast to tell fun and entertaining stories. Well, it's 2021. And I'm not in the mood to tell fun and entertaining stories right now. This episode is going to be about the shitstorm that started off 2021. This episode is Welcome to 2021, a variant of 2020. Welcome to Chucky Radio. Man, where to begin? 2021. I will say, just even saying 2021 is kind of surreal. I mean, we're living in the future. I mean, it's like, I grew up pre-2000. Okay. And for you young kids out there who only know the 2000s and the 2010s, now you guys actually get to have a decade that you can easily identify. We're in the 20s. Okay. There was the 20s 100 years ago, the roaring 20s. And then we celebrate disco in the 70s and the 80s, big hair, rock. The 90s, more alt music. But then it kind of gets lost, right? I mean, it's like the 2000s or the aughts, or I don't even know what to call. And there's no real identity. I mean, started off with the tech boom crash. I was in the middle of that shit. And then you got the tens, the teens, whatever the fuck this last decade was. So now, 2021, the way I understand it, this is the official start of the new decade. Because the first year was not year 0, it was year 1, right? I mean, I don't think there was a year 0. So a decade is year 1 through 10. So 11 starts the next decade. I don't know. That's the way I interpret it. Everyone has their own viewpoint. But 2021, we are officially in the 20s. One way or another. And what the hell is going the fuck on? Unbelievable. I mean, the last 4 years were bad enough. And it's hard not to get into politics, but I will say we deserve the last 4 years. And I know a lot of people are going to go, what the fuck? What do you mean we deserved it? We needed to wake the fuck up, man. What the DNC did to Bernie Sanders was appalling. Okay? Again, I'm not going to get into politics. But the price we've paid, whew. Oh, man. I didn't realize it was going to be this heavy. But sure as hell fucking woken some people up, man. Both sides, right? So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Chucky. My year started off pretty nuts. I had a little bit of a COVID scare. I mean, I was pretty convinced. And there's going to be There are going to be some people that aren't going to be happy with this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because this is the way it is. So I went and spent Christmas with my mom. Pretty much have been doing that for the last, for a while. Honestly, I can't even think when I haven't spent Christmas with her except for last year. I mean, I've pretty much been going there every year for the last 15, 20 years. And it's great because she lives in Miami and I get to spend Christmas on the beach. And Christmas is, it's a family time. And since I don't have a family, my mom's my family, my sister's my family, and my sister makes it out there every now and then, but pretty much it's my mom and I. And last year, for whatever reason, I'm like, God, I just want to mix it up. I want to do something different. So my sister and I went out for Thanksgiving, and it was okay. We had a nice little Thanksgiving get together. Cousins came over and all that. And then I was here back in Austin for Christmas and alone, and everyone's with their families. And I realized, like, shit, Christmas in Miami is not bad. So got back on track and decided, okay, getting to spend Christmas on the beach. Got to do all the social media posts of like, here I am. All you suckers are in the cold weather, and I'm sitting here in 70 degrees with my toes in the sand. God, sometimes I think, I'm a nut. As he takes a sip of his lovely rye whiskey. So, of course, the thing that was concerning going into this Christmas was COVID was surging and cases were rising and Austin was hitting stage 5 and, my mom's older and I got to be careful. So I was pretty much on lockdown the week and a half leading up to leaving for Miami because I wanted to be really careful, really safe. And I had flown before in October. My last episode, we talked about an awesome trip to Mexico to a great little island called Holbox. And I'll tell you, I felt safe traveling. I took all the precautions, I wore the N95 mask. I sanitized everything. The airlines were enforcing everyone has to have their mask on. You can't have a mask that has respirators, all that. So, and fortunately, there's a direct flight from Austin to Miami. So I'm like only on one plane. And when I reserved my seat, I'm lucky I've got status at American and I got to sit right towards the front and nobody sitting next to me. And so it was great. So anyway, and then I'm in Miami for about 12 days. And my mom's first cousin has kids who I've pretty much grown up with because our families are from Colombia, South America, and these are the relatives that are here in the U.S. In fact, my parents, when they first came to the U.S., they stayed with my mom's cousin in Washington, D.C., which is where I was born. And so these guys are like my cousins. They're like my first cousins, even though they're more like second cousins. And so my cousin and her kids, which she's got 2 young boys who are 20 and 24, I'm like a kid. So like immediately I bond with these guys. And they're all going to this little beach for the second weekend that I'm in town. So, and then they're going to be up there over that weekend. This is my last weekend because I'm coming back on Monday, the 28th, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with them. It's about 2.5 hour drive. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go up there. I'm just going to stay the night. They're staying in this cool resort right on the beach and everything. And then I'll come back late on Sunday afternoon. Well, I meet them on Saturday night for dinner. We go to this cool little restaurant, Waldo's. And by the way, I have to preface all of this story by saying I told a really, really good friend about this whole story. And I asked him not to repeat it. And for whatever reason, he decides he's got to tell everybody. And part of it's my fault because I know that he loves these kind of stories. He's married, he's got a young kid, you know, his life is what it is. And when he hears these crazy Chucky stories, it's like fodder, you know? I mean, it's like he just eats it up. He's just like, oh my God, you know, he just gets all like, you know, and I feed that. And that's my fault, you know, because I know I'm going to get that reaction. And there have been times in the past where stories have kind of gotten out of control and they get exaggerated. And, you know, these guys, this friend and his brother, I mean, this is like family, you know? And so all of a sudden it starts getting into the family grapevine, and, you know, our families are from Colombia. So the Colombian grapevine, oh my God, it's like, I mean, if you want everybody to know anything, just drop that into the Colombian grapevine and it's like, whoosh, lightning. I mean, everybody knows your business. So, and this is just too juicy, and I get it, you know, but I asked him not to say anything because I knew it was going to turn into something. And of course it did, you know, and the rationale given for violating what I asked, which is don't repeat this, I'm just telling you, was this is a public service. Everybody needs to know because you're going to be putting them in danger. And it's like, you know what? I call bullshit on that, man. Because yes, when you hear this story, I acted irresponsibly, but I owned up my mistake. And everything I did after that, I did everything to protect anybody around me because I recognize the fact that I may have exposed myself to COVID. I didn't need this public, you know, scolding by my friends when I wasn't even going to see any of them. I wasn't even going to come in contact with any of them. And, you know, it just became this ridiculous little enjoyment of, oh, Chucky is being nuts again. And so I did what I, if you listen to episode 1 of Chucky Radio, the very first episode in Cozumel, when I met the girl, our truth was so unbelievable that they believed our lie to cover up the truth. Yeah, it's a good episode. So anyway, so I pulled the tactic, man. I didn't want to put up with this shit anymore. And so, in fact, I haven't told them. And if they listen to this episode, they're going to now know that, yeah, I pulled the make the truth a lie tactic where I went back and I'm like, I got you guys. That didn't ever happen. I made it up. My buddy just loves to hear the Chucky stories. And I knew he was going to blab. And, you know, you guys made this big deal about it, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they think. But the truth is it all really happened. So what happened? My cousin, the mother, she's like, I'm going to call it a night. But yeah, you guys want to hang out? That's cool. And it was about 10 o'clock. And of course, the oldest, he's got a girlfriend, and so she was with us. And then the youngest, the 20-year-old, he's ready to go out, and he uses his older brother's ID so he can get into places. And so they're like, hey, we were looking online and we found there's a cool bar in town. This is a really small town. It's Vero Beach. I mean, I don't even know if there's 20,000 people, if tops, living in this town. They kind of consider it, I heard, it's like the kind of the more posh community of that area. And so anyway, I'm like, all right. And I was fine. I'm like, I'll drive. So everyone jumped in my car and we head over there. It's called Riverside in Vero Beach. And as we pull in, the parking lot's packed. And we park in the first spot. We walk in there. I've got my mask on. The guys have their masks on. And I mean, it was like out of a movie. It's like when you walk into somewhere and you're such an alien to these people, like everyone turns around and looks at you. That's what it felt like. Everybody turned around. Not a soul had a mask on. And this is like this bar, and behind the bar, it's sitting on the river. There's a river, I guess, that goes through that area. And so there's like a dock and everything. And it's just like this big open, wooden type bar. And it has a huge actual bar in the center of it. In the area you walk in through, you're kind of walking through some tables, and then you get to the bar area, and then there's a DJ in the back left corner. And I mean, you're just like, nobody is wearing a mask. And so I kept it on for like a couple minutes, but then I'm like, this ain't doing me any good. I mean, you wear a mask. I'm wearing just a standard mask. I'm not wearing an N95. I wear a mask to protect from spreading the virus to other people, right? Just in case I have it. And they're supposed to do the same. So if nobody's wearing masks, then I'm not doing myself any good. And so you're just like, screw it. You take your mask off. And so we go up to the bar. We end up finding a spot. And that's kind of how I like to do a little bar scene, is you kind of find a good spot. You get to know the bartender. They always take care of you. You know them by name. And we had fun, I mean, COVID didn't exist. The year of 2020 did not exist in this bar. And people are dancing, and the DJ's playing, and people are singing. It's some girl's birthday, and she's like standing up on the bar singing. And there's like these cute girls, and they're sitting there just like dancing and twerking. And I remember, like, I noticed there was this one guy, kind of a bigger guy, a little bit older, older in the sense like he wasn't just some kid. And he was with the girl that was probably one of the cutest girls in the bar. And at one point, he had ended up next to me trying to get a drink at the bar. And him and I just start talking, and I realize he's wasted. I mean, nice guy. He owns a roofing company. His name's Aaron. So shout out if anybody knows Aaron that owns a roofing company in Vero Beach. Totally nice guy. But, he had a few drinks, and we're sitting there talking, and I just think in the back of my mind, like, if this guy has COVID, I've got COVID now. Because we're sitting here 2-3 feet away from each other having like a conversation, and you got to talk loud because the music playing and all that, And his girlfriend's over there, she's dancing, and she walks over, and I meet her, and turns out she's a singer. We're talking about, I'm from Austin, I got friends in the music business and all that. And, it was just surreal. I mean, like I said, you would never know there's a world pandemic going on sitting inside Riverside. And at one point, my older cousin, the 24-year-old, him and his girlfriend, they kind of like had enough. And the younger one, he had a few drinks, and he did not want to stop. He's like dancing with some people and all this. And so the older one ended up grabbing an Uber and leaving. So I'm with the younger one. And Chucky, man, I'm like the eternal can't stop the party kind of guy. This is how nuts it is. At one point, the police show up. And here's the funny part. the police, I see them, they walk in, they go over to the DJ. They're not wearing masks. I mean, this place is packed, and they're now shutting the place down. It's probably about 1 o'clock. Obviously, because there is COVID, and I guess someone must have complained or something, because they were like, okay, enough's enough. And they shut this place down. And so we finally leave. And of course, my younger cousin is trying to still talk to these girls and find out if they're going anywhere, but that wasn't going anywhere. So anyway, I ended up just taking him back. And then the next day, I came back out to meet him and essentially just went to the beach with them. By around 3 o'clock, I'm like, I got to get going. I got to head back down to Miami. And I'm actually meeting a cousin of mine this is the first cousin of mine on my dad's side, who just happened to be staying in South Beach. And actually, it was in Miami Beach, just north of South Beach. And so anyway, we had been communicating. I'm like, great, let's get together. So Sunday evening, I met up with her for a drink in South Beach. Now, I was being responsible. I'm wearing my mask until we, sat down, outdoor patio, the whole bit. And, communication with my mom. And I'm leaving the next day. I'm leaving on Monday. So this is Sunday. And by the time I was done, I had texted my mom, or not texted because she doesn't get the cell phone thing very well. So I called her and said, hey, I'm going to be in a little bit late. It probably won't be till 11. She's like, oh, I'll be in bed. I'm like, great. And I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking like, I've been risky, I've been exposing myself, and my mom's older, and I'm not going to take that risk with her, And so I got in after she already went to bed. I showered, went to bed. And the next morning, I'm talking to my buddy. And this is when I told him the story of everything that had happened. And he's been really careful. I mean, he's got a young child. And he immediately was like, dude, you better wear a mask around your mom. You got to be careful. And I'm leaving that day. And here's the thing, I will take full responsibility for being irresponsible. But I know, and this is science, that there's no way being exposed on Saturday night, I will be full contagious by Monday morning. It doesn't happen that quickly. Your body's got to build up a viral load. You can't even test positive for at least 3-4 days because you have to build up enough of a viral load in your system to be able to test positive. So the likelihood of being contagious day 1, day 2 is very, very low. But I was good. I mean, I wore my mask. I even told my mom, I'm like, you know what, Mom? I was hanging out in Vero Beach and we ended up at a bar. And you know what? I just want to be safe. I'm going to wear my mask. And I literally wore my mask around the house, around her that morning. And then when she took me up, we ended up going up to meet my cousin again, just to go grab some coffee and a drink that afternoon because I was going to head to the airport that afternoon, and I was supposed to meet this other friend who she ended up, we didn't connect. So anyway, and my mom just left me there as we're coming back from meeting my cousin in South Beach. She left me in downtown where I catch the metro rail. It takes me right into the airport. And so I was careful, I mean, I was wearing my mask. I was being careful with my mom. And so, and knock on wood, thank God, here we are more than a week later. I know she's symptom free. And I got home and honestly, I felt pretty sick about it, I wasn't going to go out really for New Year's. I got back on that Monday, the 28th. New Year's Eve was Thursday, and I was pretty much working during the day. I home office, but here's what's crazy is New Year's Eve day, New Year's Day, the 1st, I was feeling sick. I was feeling really bad to the stomach. I was having some real stomach issues, and so bad the first night it hit me, I actually vomited. And then after that, I just had the runs really bad. And it was going on. I guess it was that Thursday, Friday, and I talked to my sister, and then I looked it up. The county that Vero Beach is in, called Indian River County, their percentage of positivity in COVID tests. So I remember this because there was this big news story about the city, I want to say it was in Pennsylvania, was shutting down the schools automatically. They had kind of come up with a rule that said if the positivity rate hits 3% or greater, the schools shut down. And it had been like 2.8, 2.9, and then it hit 3 and they had to shut the schools down. And there was a big debate, that there was no kind of room for flexibility there. Well, that was their measure. Their tolerance level was 3%. The positivity rate in Vero County on January 1st, I think it was, or maybe December 31st. I know when I checked it, it was the day before, 14.3%. Oh, man. And I talked to my sister, and when I told her, I didn't have fever, I didn't have any issues in the lungs, but I was just having just everything. My stomach was just like, everything was just passing right through. And so she's like, yeah, I know people who've had COVID, and that's been a big issue, is diarrhea. And I'm like, fuck, great. And so, all the while I'm dealing with all these friends of mine, my childhood friends, they're like fucking family, but, they're up in arms about Chucky being irresponsible, and Chucky, public service announcement. We got to publicly shame Chucky. So right around then is when I came up with the countermeasure. I think it was on that Saturday. Yeah, the 2nd. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I had scheduled a COVID test for Sunday. That was the soonest I could get in for a COVID test. And I did it through the city of Austin. And so I went Sunday morning and went through the drive-through deal, and they swabbed me and stuck the thing in the back of my freaking nostril. And so I was supposed to meet a couple people on Sunday that we were going to do a test for a possible live stream gig. And so on Saturday, when I decided I need to get tested, I had told them that we're going to have to reschedule and that there's a possibility I have COVID. So those two knew. And then another buddy of mine who had COVID, I was talking to him, and I told him of the possibility that I had COVID. And then my sister and one other good friend. And so only 5 people knew that I was being tested and that there's a chance, and I felt a pretty good chance that I've got COVID. And of course, my closest friends, I've got them all convinced that I wasn't risky, and it was all a bullshit story, and no way I have COVID, right? And my game plan has been, and I guess this podcast is going to be, if they listen to it, they get to hear what the whole story is, eventually, if I tested positive, I would come clean and let them know directly. And if I test negative, then, whatever. Well, thank God I get the test results back and they're negative. And so I believe that was late Monday. And here's, not to get on another whole subject, but I don't know, man. It's been a wacky start to a year. It's been chaotic, right? I mean, 2020 did not fucking end and it just spilled, I mean, full blown into 2021. And so part of that, I just feel like a disconnect from friends. And here's the part that just, it's my issue, I guess, but I texted all 5 of those friends and a little snapshot of the test result showing that I'm negative. My sister and one person that I was supposed to meet on Sunday for that test were the only 2 that responded like, "Oh, thank God you're negative." The other 3 didn't hear anything out of them. Now, I know everyone's caught up in their own world and, chances are we're all getting tons of text messages. They've got families, they're dealing with a lot of shit. And so they may have not even seen that text, or they saw it was a picture and didn't even bother to look at it because they're like, oh, it's just some other picture. I don't know, but it just kind of struck me, It just kind of struck me like family's like the first you can always count on, man. God bless my mother, my sister. And here's the thing. Never started a family of my own, and that's really started to get to me in the last few years. And I believe I will. But in the meantime, I know I have them. And I'm not going to take anything away from my good friends. They've got their families. They're dealing with the things they have to deal with. But I love them. And I know they would be there for me as well. But sometimes, Jesus, you just gotta like anybody. I mean, like I gotta take my mom in doses sometimes too. I mean, I say 10 days, 12 days in Miami's perfect. Start staying there much longer. Oh yeah, my mom and I will start getting on each other's nerves. So I guess that goes for anybody, you gotta know that at the end of the day, you're there for them, they're there for you.